Now that we have the topography in place and we have the 4 structures pretty much blocked out in terms of, how large they'll be on the sheets and what they're going to be including, we're going to kind of move on to another phase of this drawing project, which is basically to get these drawings ready on sheets and with an appropriate level of detail. We'll be doing a lot of work within the annotation tools that Revit has. First thing that I'm going to do is go to level 1. And I've been using these sections to kind of check and see that alignments are correct and objects are visible within the 2D views. I'm going to take these 2 sections. This is section 2, and I'm going to pull it over to the edge here. And I'll bring this one down. And I may be using those, as we kind of move forward, but I'm going to start building some sections that will remain more permanently within the drawing set. So I'm going to go to View and click on Section, and I will make my first section in the same place, basically, that section 1 was. I'll drag it across the 4 structures, and I'm going to scroll down here to the project browser. There's section number 3. Now at this point, I'm going to rename it. So I've right-clicked on it and I've hit rename. And I'm going to call this one longitudinal section looking north. Sometimes you'll see that sections are named, all kinds of things, section A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. But I like for the title to give a little bit more information about, where it is and what direction it's looking, just because I feel like that gives people a little bit more orientation. All right, so now I have this longitudinal section looking north. And as I mentioned, this is going to become like a permanent view within the drawing set. I have the 4 sections showing here. This scale of this is 1/8 of an inch equals a foot, which is what it will remain. And I'm going to start using this one to begin keying in some other annotation references. So I will change it. I can see that some of my structural work is only appearing as line work, and I want that to read in 3D, or at least have some dimension. So I'll click on the fine detail level. Okay, so now I'm going to start generating a series of new sections. One thing I like to do when I'm kind of setting up some of these annotations is to create kind of reference planes. Reference planes are used for different purposes, but I like to make things aligned. So I'm going to generate a reference plane that runs through the middle of those column levels, right? And it's going to say that they're not visible, and that's fine. If I want to see them, I can click on this crop view and it will appear. And then I'm going to create another one that is right on top of this lower datum here. Then I'm going to move that one. It's okay if it's not perfectly on top. I'm going to move it down, let's say about 3 feet. Okay. And that way I can use that to generate, center points for the components of the sections. And I may use them for other purposes too. They can always be deleted later and they don't print. So I'm going to go to View and I'm going to go to Section. Now the first point that this section makes is the head of the section. So I'm going to click, try to go roughly in the middle of between column lines 3 and 4 and bring it down to my new reference line. And then I want it to look, the the opposite direction. So I'm going to change that. And then when I go over here, I should see that there's a new section, section 3. As I renamed this one, I will also this one rename, and we're going to call it section through structure, and we'll just call this structure 1, looking west. And, you know, while we're here, this is maybe a time to start talking about the use of capitals versus lowercase. I'm actually going to retype this in and start to be more consistent about these naming protocols. So I will repeat this section through structure 1, looking west. And I'm actually, while I'm here, going to repeat this, rename longitudinal section looking north. I will try to keep all the annotations that appear in the drawing set as all caps, as would be traditional. Now, in more contemporary drawing sets, you'll see that there are combinations of uppercase and lowercase. But for our set, we will kind of go with those earlier conventions, which would have been all capital letters. Okay, so there's section through structure looking west, and I can just double click here and go take a look at it. And I'll go back to the section looking north. I'm going to create another one through my second structure, and I will repeat the same process. You know, I'm going to go roughly midway between column lines 5 and 6 for this one. And I will come down here, snap. I will click on it, reverse the direction. And this one is the new section looking through section 3. I'm going to rename it. And again, with all capital letters, section through structure 2, looking west. Okay, we'll leave this one alone for a moment, and we'll go down to this one over here. We'll do a new section, again, between 11 and 12. And the reason I'm doing it between 11 and 12 is I want to see what's happening down that middle column line 11. So we'll flip it. This one, rename section through structure 4, looking west. Okay, now the only one that I don't have is this middle one right here. For this one, I'm going to create a call out because I would like to see the section enlarged, but in the same orientation. The section that looks in the opposite directions for this particular structure doesn't show us quite as much as this one does. So for the call out, I'm going to click on call out here, and I will kind of, you know, I need to make sure I get some of the ground surrounding it, and I need to make sure that my call out captures this part up here. I want to give a little bit of space to the left and right, and I'm going to try my best to make it relatively symmetrical. So I will approximately place it about right here. Okay, save my project. And for this column bubble, I'm going to click on this. I'm going to move it to the top. Oops, I don't want to move it there. I want to move the column bubble up to that same reference line. Okay, you know, and you know, we'll try to, if I click on the bubble, try to center it there so it looks consistent. And this way, all of my sections and call outs will have the same height. So when I placed this one, I tried to center it on the first click, but it puts the bottom of it there. So I will go around along to all of these and just drop them so that it is the center of the target that aligns with that reference line. Do all three. Okay. All right, there we go. We have 4 call outs or 4 references to these other drawings. Now, the call out is this one right here. And this isn't really helpful as a name. So I'm going to rename this one section through structure 3. This one is looking north. Okay, so now I have them all kind of grouped together. Oops, and I misspelled this one, so let's make that correction. E, U. Now, all of these will be enlargements. If I go to the one that's called section through structure, one more spelling correction here. I want them to read alphabetically. So there we go. If I go to the section through structure looking north, when you make a call out, it automatically will double the size. So if the original section was 1/8 inch, when I make the call out, it will make it 1/4 of an inch. But these other ones were a different kind of reference. They were created through the section keys. So I'm going to change all of these to 1/4. And I'm also going to change the detail level to fine. So I'll just go through all of them. 1/4, fine, 1/4. And this one was the call out, and it had by default will have a coarse detail level, 1/4, fine. Okay, and go back to section looking north. Now, down in the project browser, we had created 3 sheets. We're going to create a new sheet. I'm going to right click here, click on new sheet. We'll use the same title block and click on OK. And this one, I'm going to rename it. I might resort these. The number will stay the same for the moment, but I'm going to call this Transverse. And again, all capitals, Transverse sections, and say OK. And now I can begin to drag these drawings that I just created, these views I just created, over to the page. When you drag these details, they will automatically number 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it's best to drag them over in the order that you would like them to be. You can, if you happen to drag them in a different order, you can change the numbers once you've brought them in. There's the first one. Okay, so if we zoom in here, it's going to adopt the title of the view, and it will number them and assign the scale that we had assigned to it. We'll take this one, structure number 2. Bring it in. Now, generally speaking, there are 2 primary methods for numbering drawings. Some people prefer to start from the lower right-hand corner and either number them from right to left or from bottom to top, and then repeat the process. I would say that you just want to be consistent. Now, the reason that someone would start the numbering from the lower right is because typically a set of drawings would be stapled on the left side and would have a binding And so you're kind of flipping these big drawings over from the right side. And, detail number 1 is going to be way up here in the corner. And if I have a sheet that only has, let's say, if it doesn't have details filling the entire sheet, I'm going to have a lot of like empty space over here, and my numbering system will, kind of, play into that whole thing. If I was to start the first detail in the lower right-hand corner, then when I flip through the pages, detail number 1 is here at the bottom, as opposed to the way that I just brought them in, which is just the traditional, book standard reading from left to right, top to bottom. So generally speaking, when you're doing a set of drawings, the key is to just really be consistent about how you are placing annotations and numbering things and organizing your set. But you will notice different ways of doing that. So here is section 3, or structure 3 rather, and structure 4 will be here. Now you might say to yourself that these don't fit, but you'd be surprised if you do some editing and pushing and cropping and all of that. You can get quite a bit of information on a set and on a single page. And personally, I think it's much better to fill the page with as much content as possible than it is to give them lots of, space in between to give more breathing room. Again, like these 2 details on the bottom, we can start to do things like pull these section tags in closer and, move things around a little bit so that everything fits nicely and that sort of thing. So we'll be working on that next.